By early 1943, the Allied path to Europe was blocked by a single stretch of water. Troops massed along the North African coast, looking toward the Mediterranean. Every map pointed to the same stepping stone: Sicily, the unavoidable bridge to the Italian mainland. Because the geography was so obvious, the German High Command was already waiting. They were heavily fortifying the island's beaches, guaranteeing that any direct assault would result in a massive bloodbath. British intelligence officers Ewan Montagu and Charles Cholmondeley were tasked with a singular problem: find a way to make the German army look away from the only logical target. To protect the real invasion force, they would have to move beyond traditional military strategy. Their plan was to fabricate a completely fictional invasion, using a dead man as their messenger. The officers eventually secured the remains of Glyndwr Michael, a homeless Welshman who had died after ingesting rat poison, a man with no family to claim him and no history to protect. British intelligence erased Michael's past and replaced it with a detailed military record. He was transformed into Major William Martin of the Royal Marines, complete with a rank, a unit, and an official serial number. They placed forged documents inside the major's briefcase, identifying Greece and Sardinia as the primary targets. Drafting these required a light touch. They had to sound like casual correspondence between senior officers, rather than a formal military briefing. The letters even mention Sicily by name, referring to it as a deliberate feint. By pointing to the island so directly, they hoped to convince the Germans that the heavy defenses they were currently building were exactly what the Allies wanted them to do. But the officers knew that perfect military documents alone wouldn't be enough. To be believed, the major needed to look like a man who lived a messy, complicated life. They turned to a concept known as pocket litter, the everyday items a person carries. These small details were meant to bypass the natural paranoia of enemy intelligence. They gave the major a fiancée named Pam, placing her photograph in his wallet alongside her receipt for a recently purchased engagement ring. They included a stub from a West End theater and a stern letter from his bank regarding an overdrawn account. These details painted a portrait of a real person with real flaws. In April 1943, a British submarine surfaced off the coast of Spain. Major Martin was released into the current, floating toward a shore where the British knew a German spy was active. Spanish fishermen pulled the body from the water, and the briefcase was eventually handed over to German intelligence. Every document was photographed, and the contents were immediately transmitted to Berlin. The delivery mechanism was designed to weaponize the enemy's own network. By allowing the briefcase to be stolen by a spy, the British ensured the documents would be treated as a major intelligence coup, rather than a suspicious gift. When the documents reached Berlin, the Abwehr began a meticulous authentication process. Every scrap of paper, from the banknote to the personal letters, was scrutinized for any hint of a forgery. The reports eventually reached Adolf Hitler. Convinced the intelligence was genuine, he overrode his generals and ordered heavy panzer divisions to move from their positions in Italy and relocate to Greece. On July 10, 1943, the Allies finally hit the beaches of Sicily. Instead of the bloodbath they had feared, they found a coastline with its primary defenses moved to the wrong country. Shortly after the landing, naval intelligence sent a one-line signal to Winston Churchill, confirming the total success of the lie. Mincemeat swallowed rod, line, and sinker. While the general celebrated, the body of the man who made it possible remained in Spain. He was buried with full military honors, under the name of the man he had pretended to be, Major William Martin. The truth of his identity remained a secret for over half a century. It wasn't until 1998 that the name Glyndwr Michael was finally added to the headstone. The tide of the war in the Mediterranean was turned not by a new weapon or a grand charge, but by a carefully constructed life, carried by a man who never knew the thousands of lives his presence would save.